Hi, welcome to another episode of Vote for Vermont. Today we have a very special guest, but before we jumped into the interview, we wanted to do a quick disclaimer. Both Pat McDonald and myself have both worked for this individual. Pat actually ran his first campaign for Lieutenant Governor, and I worked for him in his office when he was Lieutenant Governor. Today we're very excited to introduce Governor Phil Scott.
Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the soundbites. Joining me today, of course, is Ben Kinsley, who is the Executive Director for Campaign for Vermont, and our very special guest, as they say, needs no introduction, Governor Phil Scott. Governor, welcome.
Well,
pleasure.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben.
I think you were on the show back right before the campaign as a candidate.
Yeah, it's been a while, but it's good to be back.
Yes, thank you. Nice to have you. So we usually ask our guests to tell a little bit about their background, but I'm going to skip it in your case.
That's fine.
I figure if you don't know, you haven't been paying attention. But I did want to start with some great news that hit the papers the other day, that Vermont is ranked as one of 15 states for job seekers. The Business Insider ranked us as 15th for come here if you want to find a job. How great is that?
Well, it is great, but it also leads to the problem that we find ourselves in, the situation we find ourselves in. And it really is about an area that I've tried to promote over the last number of years, and it's about our demographics. There are jobs here because there are less people working today than there were 7 years ago. And that's the problem we need to rectify. We need to bring more people, more families into the state. And there are opportunities here, but now because of our demographics, right. We're getting older, and we're not bringing as many, keeping as many youth here, bringing more families in. Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunity in Vermont. We just have to provide to course or path towards that opportunity, right. As well as making Vermont affordable so they can stay.
And I think we had talked on one of the show about housing.
Yeah.
That and jobs for the spouses. That was always an issue when you'd find, say, the wife got a job somewhere and the husband couldn't find a job for himself. So that was a problem. And I think you've really been working on housing.
We have collectively.
Yeah.
This is an issue. Housing is an issue. I believe that many groups, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Progressive, many have said we need more affordable housing in Vermont. And so finally, we all got together somehow and said, well, if we all want it, right. why don't we do it? And so with the help of the legislature, we were able to pass the $35 million bond, right. which is going to leverage, I believe, another $65 million. So really? This is the biggest housing investment in Vermont in our history.
Oh, that's great.
So we're working at it. We highlighted that yesterday. We're working with VHCB and other groups to try and put it into.
It's great. It's really needed.
Yeah.
And for the middle income, for affordable housing, yeah. It's just really.
It's interesting. We had affordable housing at one time, and when you think about it, think about growing up in Barrie, Legue Lane.
Oh, sure.
All built by Henry Legue,
right? Yes.
That was affordable housing.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of developments and so forth for the working class. We've seemed to have moved away from that. Right. A lot of higher income housing, yeah. as well as a lot of low income housing. And the middle was forgotten about.
And the young people you're talking about getting jobs, they can't afford either end of that. So anyway,
right. Yeah, we've talked with a number of guests about the challenge of doing that, and how do you get people into Vermont? How do you recruit them here? How do you go out and bring young people to the state and then keep them here?
Right.
What do you do to retain them?
It is true. It's very difficult. What we need to do is listen to them first. Listen right. to people, families like yours. What is it that keeps you from staying here? And whether it's the young professionals or anecdotally talking with many families, young families, it usually comes down to an opportunity right. and the affordability, taxes and so forth, right. but also a decent place to live.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I think when I talk to people my age, and I think a lot of it is culture.
Yeah.
They like the culture here. They like the outdoor
sure.
aspect of what we have to offer here in Vermont. So one of the things we did want to ask you, you were Lieutenant Governor for several years before you ran for governor. and you sat on Governor Shumlin's cabinet, which is kind of unusual, in Vermont. Were there any surprises when you made the switch from lieutenant governor to governor, for having been involved in that? Or?
Well, one surprise is that I have a voice now. I actually,
you can raise your hand and say, hey,
you have a seat at the table. You get to actually direct some of the things. And it was. I remember early on when Governor Shumlin was elected, and he had reached out to see if I would serve on the cabinet. I had thought about that, and if I declined, it would have looked like I wasn't willing to work together. But in saying that, sure, and from his standpoint as well, he received some criticism for the outreach. Why are you letting a Republican into the cabinet? They might see what's going on. But in the end, the first couple of years, I tried to go to the cabinet meetings. And then after a while, I didn't have much of a voice. And understandably, the lieutenant governor is somewhat powerless in some ways. You preside over the Senate. You have a very small office. There are many, many in Vermont that don't understand that the lieutenant governor is elected separately.
Right.
I ran into somebody last week, someone who it was shocking to me that they didn't know that the lieutenant governor was elected separately.
Oh, they thought it was a ticket?
They thought it was combined because they kept referring to, well, if you want to send your number 2 instead, we would love to hear from him as well.
Right.
And I said, well, actually, that's a different, different party, different vision.
Because I actually like that idea. I know some people didn't, but that to invite you on the committee, I thought that was great. Just to talk about maybe the opposition, talk about changing things a little bit.
I remember in the beginning, that was when he started out with the single payer initiative.
Yeah. Oh.
And I'd said I was willing to listen, but you have to get through me, so to speak. If you can prove it to me, then you might have a chance.
Right.
And I said, but we need to know, how much is it going to cost? Who's going to pay for it? What is it really going to look like? And the cabinet kept saying, we'll convince you. We're going to be able to make this happen. But it never came. You got
to give him credit for doing that, because you could have taken every meeting and brought it back to the Republicans if you so chose to do it. I don't think you would have. I don't think.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was pretty risky on him.
Yeah, it was risky on his part.
Good for him.
But you do the honorable thing. You take the information that you're hearing, and it wasn't like some secret chamber either. I know his were different as well. I mean, I think it's interesting, different styles. He had meetings once a month with his cabinet. He wasn't always there, which I thought was interesting.
Right.
I thought, it was more of a CEO type of atmosphere where you wanted to be right there in touch. And I've done something different. And I spoke with a lot of governors after the election and asked, how many times do you meet? And some would meet. Some never had cabinet meetings.
Oh, that's bad.
Some have them every quarter. Some have them every month. There was only one other governor that had them every week, and that was Nikki Haley. And so I took her approach, and we have them every single week. And I said to the cabinet early on, we will be successful as a team when we're at a cabinet meeting and we're trying to solve each other's problems.
Right.
When we listen to what the challenges are within their different departments and agencies, and we have an Anson Tebbets from agriculture trying to help out somebody from human services about a challenge they might have.
Well, I think some of the collaboration sounds like it's starting to happen already, like between Agency of Education and the Agency of Human Services.
Right.
There's sounds like there's collaboration there, and there's some issues that are pervasive across almost every agency. Things like opiates and and issues like that, mental health. You see that pop up all across the spectrum.
The other issue that we found early on was. I talked about trying to cross-market in some way, that we should be able to, whether it's, again, education or whether it's transportation or whether it's Agency of Natural Resources, Fish and Wildlife, if you have something you're trying to promote, why not try and promote it across the agency lines?
As a group.
So we started to do some investigation as to how many points of information there are, how many different areas do we have people that are actually there to give information out about their agencies, and we came across, I think it's 43.
Wow.
And they never talk with each other, and I thought that was
cool.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because especially in this day and age when social media is just taken off and instantaneous information is at your fingertips,
that's great.
We should be able to cross market and
yeah,
and use each
Michael
other.
Snyder was talking about that ag and forest parks and recreation are now one committee, and he's working very closely with Ensign.
Right.
That's a perfect blend.
No,
anyway,
it is interesting.
See, we're talking, just keep talking here. We're going to get to page 2 instead of 6.
Yeah.
So during your campaign, I have to ask you if you could just kind of re-talk about the promises that you made during your campaign, because that all fits into the accomplishments that you've accomplished this last year that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, the promises I made during the campaign were actually extended to an executive order on my first day in office.
Right.
And really 3 very simple principles and guidelines that we think about each and every single day about making Vermont more affordable, growing the economy, protecting the most vulnerable, and making government more efficient.
Right.
And so we've worked on each one of those areas, and sometimes they cross. And it's interesting when you're at different events. I think about this a lot, whether it's at a capstone event,
right.
and they help with the affordability. They protect the most vulnerable.
Oh, for sure. That's an amazing organization.
It really is.
Yeah.
So there are areas where you may not typically think about those issues, but the government modernization is going well. We're trying to introduce more of that lean manufacturing into state government, which is appropriate. I mean, lean manufacturing was something that I believe Henry Ford started.
Yes.
Henry Ford actually took the assembly line and made it work for Ford. And then Toyota really took off from there and put it on steroids. But there's no reason that we can't utilize that same approach in state government to make it work better for us. And it's something that always evolves. It's not, I mean, you did when you were at Motor Vehicle. I mean, it's a constant challenge
and
about
you know what
serving
happens?
your
Your
customer.
employees get so into it because they know their job isn't at risk. And they just want to do a good job and go home at the end of the day and feel good about it. So the morale goes sky high when you make it more efficient.
And it's amazing when you do empower the frontline employees. And I talked about this on my inaugural address about I came from the construction industry, and when I find myself faced with a problem, I usually go to those on the front lines, those in the trenches, literally in the trenches, to help us out of the situation because they have ideas. They see it from a different perspective than I would. And it's the same here with our state employees. Like asking them, what do you think? You've been in this for a long time. What do you think? What can we do better? And they are rallying, and it really is spectacular to watch.
Yeah, and once they feel comfortable, because they've always told me when they hear the words effective and efficient, which that means job loss.
Yeah, no, I know.
And they just back off and clamp down immediately. But if you make them feel that you really want to hear from them, they'll jump right in.
Can I tell you one quick story about Brenda from the Department of Labor? And this was at the Big E. And so we had A&R was there, Ag was there, and other folks, Department of Labor. And what our challenge is, as we talked about in the beginning, we need more people here. We need to grow the population a bit. We need more workers. So she was down there promoting Vermont, and so typically there's cards you give out and they say come to Vermont. I don't know what it says exactly, but come to Vermont. It's a wonderful place to live, work, and play, and here you go. Well, she took it upon herself and she said, I'm going to find, there are jobs that are right here. If you're an electrician, I'm going to list the job that's opening, how much it pays, who to get in contact with, and I'm going to interact with people. So what are you interested in? Well, I'm a plumber. Well, here you go. Take the plumbing
for
card.
her.
Here you go. Here's an electrical job right here. Here's one in civil engineering. Here's one in whatever category.
Nice.
And she did that herself. And
That's great.
I give her great credit for
and
coming up with that initiative.
I'm sure the people she was interacting with were very impressed.
And the Big E is impressive in itself.
Yeah, it is.
It's amazing what we do there. We should be very proud of the building we have.
Yeah, and the ensign said, I read that they put some additional money into it, so it's even
did.
better than it was.
Yeah, upgraded.
Yeah,
and
right.
it's one of the better facilities there. And we get prime space.
Yeah, it's great.
And we have a lot of.
And we get a Saturday for Vermont Day. That's a plus.
That's right. There was 127,000 people that came through there.
Oh wow,
Food's good
crazy.
One
too.
day.
Speaking
Yes, they
of
do have
food,
good
and
food.
we're
Beer,
big on craft beer here. Don't get them started. We'll
Oh yeah, we could spend the
we
whole
had
show
a
just
show.
talking
What's
about that.
talking about craft beer? That was with Michael Snyder.
And we have a new one opening up in Waitsfield, as a matter of fact, or a new facility, Lawson's.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Which is pretty exciting. This
Yeah.
is somebody that started. It was a state employee that started in Forest Parks.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and he was just making brewing in his garage, and it's taken off. Now he has a plant in Connecticut, but
Oh,
now
that's
he's
great.
a huge facility they're building, and
Excellent.
it's Lawson's summer, something like that.
Oh, nice. We'll have to check it out.
Yeah, there's always new breweries.
Sip of Summer,
popping
I
up.
think.
Oh,
or
no,
something
that
like
even sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we're going to put you to the test here. You have got the most amazing list on your website, and it was really the first 100 days, and there's another list somewhere, I think, that's got from the 100 days to now of all of the accomplishments. And I went through and by category of priorities. First one is efforts to grow the economy, and highlighted some of the things we could talk about fairly quickly today. There's like 10 times more than what we've got here. You really should check it out on the website. It's really impressive. Sometimes we only hear the 5 or 6 things that hit the press, but there's hundreds of. It's amazing.
And we have a whole team working
Oh,
on that
I know. They
all
work
the time.
hard.
Yeah.
So the first one we were talking about is recommit to revitalize state relationship with ag and the outdoor communities, and that's the VOREC.
Oh yeah.
And maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, this was started a little bit before me and this administration, but it was started in the previous administration during the last few months, and so I thought it was a great idea. I went to one of the meetings.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great idea, and Michael Snyder was there. Lewis Porter was there.
Yeah. Oh, I love
And
Lewis.
they and so I thought this makes some sense. We should keep moving on
Right.
this. So we got the VASA people together, and as well as the VAST
Right.
people together, and all these manufacturers as well,
Yeah.
and the Mountain Bike Association, and tried to put everybody in one room to see again, how do you cross market?
Right.
How do you work
Right.
together? If this is something that we can sell in Vermont, then let's sell it.
Right.
And I think there are so many opportunities, and I think it's
Michael
going
was
to.
going through a whole day in Vermont, starting with maple syrup, pancakes and maple syrup, and then going for a hike, and then going boating and hunting, and he went through this whole list of. I mean, what a great day!
And you think
so much
about,
stuff.
and again, what Ben was talking about before, and maybe you were as well. What do the families do
Right.
when the husband or wife or the couple comes to Vermont? What are there for activities
Right.
for the other person
Right.
to do? And many come to Vermont because of our outdoors. So let's work on that, build
Yeah.
on that. The Lamoille Valley Rail Trail,
Oh, amazing!
incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Amazing.
And I had a similar reaction when I learned about what the committee was doing, and I think it's a great idea. I mean, you have some groups that are part of this that are growing so quickly, like industries like mountain biking in Vermont are growing at an incredible rate, and paddling sports, stuff like paddleboarding.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many paddleboards I've seen on the Burlington waterfront this year.
My wife has
this is
gotten
amazing.
into paddleboarding. We have 2. I haven't been out yet,
Right.
but she
Yeah,
has a lot.
She's everywhere.
Yeah.
She's
She likes
into
she likes
sports
that.
for sure. So the next thing we want to talk about, which I was thrilled to hear, the secure sales tax exemption to strengthen aerospace and forest business sector, because Bill Sayer and Michael were on the shows talking about the crisis in the forest for our softwoods or cheaper woods.
Well, it's a big industry for us, and something that's been somewhat forgotten for a while. And we, our deputy commissioner, you should have him on sometime, Sam Lincoln.
Oh.
Sam was a logger himself.
Oh, you're kidding. Oh, for sure.
And he has a farm down in the East Brookfield, Randolph area.
Yep.
And so he came on board. We convinced him he should be part of the solution.
Cool.
And he's bringing a lot of this to the forefront because he had to live it.
Yeah.
And I think that was so powerful as well, bringing people in that actually walked a few miles in those boots.
Yeah.
And that makes all the difference in the world. So he's been working on that in that area in particular. As well as continuing with Mike Snyder has done.
Right.
And the aeronautics is...
Now talk a little bit about that, because that is quite the industry here, and I don't think people have a clue.
Well, because that's part of the initiative with trying to work with Canada. We said early on, other governors have traveled to foreign lands, China and Cuba and so forth and so on. We don't have to travel very far.
Go across the border.
We have so much opportunity right north of us, whether it's in energy or whether it's in aeronautics. Bombardier, right in Valcourt. Valcourt is less than an hour from the border, and they are a major player in aeronautics. So what you have is you have companies that want to grow, and they want to get their foot in the door in the U.S. So what better place to do it than in Vermont? I mean, we share a border. We have many common, I think, a common approach, and there's some trust that's built in there as well. And it's about relationships. When you're dealing with Canada and Quebec in particular, they want to trust you, and you have to work at that relationship. So what the Chamber of Commerce has done, and Betsy Bishop and Chris Kerrigan have done is remarkable, because they're looking at this from a broader perspective, and we're working with them on this, because it's not just we know we can't build airliners here in Vermont, right? We can't compete with California or even Connecticut in a lot of respects. But if we can work as a region, we can work with Canada and Quebec and Vermont and New Hampshire and Maine and New York and Massachusetts and Connecticut. If we can work as a region and just really think about what it is that we can do. Maybe we can build wiring harnesses. Maybe we can do machine work. We have some tremendous opportunities for in the machine trades here. We were the center of attention in terms of machining in Springfield at one time. Probably one of the most sought after quality products were right out of Springfield. We haven't completely lost that. We still have that manufacturing connection, innovation, and so forth. So again, building upon this more regional approach, let's work together.
Great, good idea.
And then we as a region might be able to compete more with California.
Great.
Vermont can't compete with California, but as a region.
Well, this is a great start, because it gives a little incentive. That's great.
That's why this.
Because I really, especially in the forest thing, we spent a lot of time talking about not having enough people to work in the woods.
Right.
And the ripple effect, if that industry is going bad, how it ripples through the economy and impacts an awful lot of people.
Well, speaking with Governor LePage from Maine, as well as Governor Sununu, we have similar issues in terms of some of the protections and tariffs and so forth on softwoods and with our Canadian friends, because we actually need them, because some of the mills are there, and without them, we don't have any mills anymore. We don't have them in New Hampshire anymore. We don't have many across the north.
Maine's closing them, which is the big problem.
So we, again, Governor LePage, myself, and Sununu have said, be careful when when you get involved with this tariff issue, because it could have an effect on our economy.
Right.
So we're working
well,
together.
I think, Canada, we often forget that we have almost 1.5 million people less than an hour north of our border. And, and it's a lot, Montreal's a lot closer than Boston and New York are. And that's a resource that we can utilize.
Well, think about it in this way. And I've been to Quebec City, Montreal a couple times, as well as to Ontario. And when you think about Toronto as well, I mean, there's some opportunities we're working on in terms of pre-clearance, right? So if we can have pre-clearance in Toronto, pre-clearance for Porter Airlines, because we have twice a week during the winter, we have a flight coming back and forth for skiers out of Toronto. Toronto is the 4th largest city in North America.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
And it's less than an hour plane ride away.
It is, and you can fly right into Toronto.
Yeah.
It's like you're flying right into right on Main Street almost. It's amazing. So if we could, if we can tap into that market, because we hadn't thought about that as much. It's a huge financial market right there.
A lot of Canadians come to ski, particularly in Bolton Valley, and also to shop. The ladies are here shopping.
Again, if we can, and the pre-clearance has been okayed by the U.S.
Great.
It's really in the hands of Canada now in their parliament, and it sounds like it's going to go through. But if we could have that and have a daily flight out of Toronto right into Burlington, and where when you get off the plane, you could go, you're done.
Right.
You can go. You get cleared before you get on the plane.
Nice.
Same with Amtrak coming from Montreal. If we can have pre-clearance there, and once you get on the rail and come into Vermont or wherever,
would love it.
Huge opportunities for tourism and trade.
Excellent. Good
So
job.
we're working on that. So again, think about Toronto, Montreal, Quebec City.
Yeah, they're all
three
right there.
three cities, all within almost
That's great.
5 hours of us.
Yeah.
That's significant.
That's nice.
It is
Easy
significant.
ride.
So we talked a little bit earlier on about the executive orders you issued in January. The VMET team, the modernization and efficiency, we talked about that. But there's a number of initiatives that you've had to make Vermont more affordable, including the Pivot program, and I'll give you an opportunity to talk about it, as well as the combination of the Department of Liquor Control and the Lottery Commission, as well as alignment of DOL and ACCD. So I'll give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you're doing there.
Yeah, the Pivot program is something we talked about before. We have a director there that's doing a marvelous job, a woman named Sue Zeller. You might know her.
They know she's my sister. I can tell you she's good.
Yeah, she's been doing some pretty amazing things there, and we see a lot of promise, and we've already seen the fruits of our labor. So we're looking for great things out of that. The combining liquor and lottery was something that was a little frustrating for me during the session, because Ben, you've been there for a while, and you've seen it when you were in the House. We talked about this for years.
It's the same skill.
You have served the same customers.
I don't get it.
You have an agency where there's about 20 in the Lottery Commission, and about 50 or 60 in the liquor. By combining the two, you're still going to have one of the smallest agencies in state government.
What was their resistance? I honest to God don't get it at all.
Just resistance to change, I think. But
I was dying to go down and testify and go, stop it, you people. This makes so much sense.
But the good news is we were able to at least put another commission together that is actually making some ground. We're going to get there, I believe, and hopefully next year we'll be able to enact that, so that again we can make government a little more efficient.
Right.
Why do you have to have 2 commissioners, a couple of deputy commissioners, and 2 boards and so forth when you're serving the same clientele?
Well, and one of the interesting things, talking with some small business owners, people who own retail establishments that are selling both liquor and lottery, you have to have 2 different point of sale systems.
Right.
So you have to cash out separately. You have to have someone go to this counter for liquor and then have someone go to the other counter for lottery tickets.
Makes no sense.
And it makes no sense.
Yeah. And when you think about, you know, New Hampshire, in terms of liquor sales, really does a number on Vermont.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you can buy it right on the interstate.
Yes, and some of us do.
And some of us do.
It's just a drive-through.
Yeah, right,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that there are some opportunities once we combine the two. Once we look at how we're doing business, maybe there's a different way to do business. We can learn from our other states as well.
Right.
Maine's done some pretty good things in that area.
What was their resistance to ACCD and DOL? Because they didn't give any resistance to labor and industry and employment and training merge into the Department of Labor. And so the next logical step is bringing them all in one.
Wouldn't you think, I mean, you've been there, but wouldn't you think that putting people side by side, those who are looking for a job with those who have jobs, would make a natural
Just
kind
a
of
thought.
fit?
I wrote a few letters. I did. I was so mad.
But you know, again, I hope we'll continue to work towards that. And if we don't do it officially, we can do it unofficially by the way we're working together.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can combine.
Yeah.
Right.
Lindsay Curley is doing a great job.
Great.
Mike Sherling.
Yep.
Ted Brady.
We had him on the show too.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, I love Ted.
Yeah, he's great.
Such a great guy.
But just trying to put, you know, they can work together now, and without the physical location. So we'll continue down that road.
One of the things I'm really interested in, you launched a pilot program for 30,000 Medicaid members aimed at incentivizing the healthcare system to improve quality and also reduce costs. Where is that pilot program at today?
It's actually, we're still monitoring that. All indications are that it's working, and as I said in the beginning, I don't know whether this all-payer model will work, but I know that what we're doing right now isn't. So let's try it out. Let's do a pilot project.
Could you explain that?
It's just a different method of paying for holistically, paying for the good health of the patient, rather than individual fee for service.
Okay.
So that you don't. So you give like almost like a block grant to an organization, a hospital, and they take care of the patients within that
whatever that means
concept,
to take care of them.
rather than trying to manipulate the process, like with Medicaid. You know, you get paid this much for this procedure. If you do this, you get paid this much, and if you do this, you get. If you have this other this X-ray or something, you get paid X amount. By going, just let's forget about that because it's about money. Let's think about how do we take care of the patient, make sure that they're healthy. Let's do some things that would really benefit, whether it's in some dental, whether it's in being proactive in their health and diet and so forth. Let's figure it out.
That's great.
And I think it's got some promise. In fact, the federal government, we by all indications, they like what we're doing, and gave us a waiver to move forward with this, and I believe that they want to see whether this might be the approach that other states could take as well. So
and largely this concept of an all-payer system is being driven by the private sector in a lot of ways, right? It's the hospitals themselves that are driving this, saying we need to change and we realize it.
And so it's working together once again, public-private, and trying to figure out what's the best approach. And I think that's what we need to do with a lot of initiatives. Let's not force it. Let's work together.
How does this work with what's happening in Washington?
Or
who knows?
What's happening in Washington?
Yes, nothing.
But
if it did.
Good point, though. I mean, if nothing happens in Washington, means that we need to do whatever we can ourselves.
Right.
And if we have something that they might be able to point to at some point and say, well, what Vermont's doing makes some sense.
Right.
And if we can replicate that, maybe that's part of the answer. Maybe it doesn't work for every state. I don't know, but we're going to, hopefully try it out here.
Get ahead of them. That's a good thing.
It's cool.
Yeah, exactly. So the next one on your priority list was efforts to protect the vulnerable, and you established through executive order, again, an opioid coordination council. And we have the chair of that council coming in next week.
Oh, great.
Yeah. You haven't met Jolinda, have you?
No, I haven't.
You think I'm hyper?
Yeah.
Wait.
Hang on.
Hang on to your seats.
Hang on.
She's great.
What is their
She's
their mission?
She's the director
of
prevention. And we formed this opioid council that's co-chaired by Jim Leddy.
Oh, my gosh, perfect.
And we have a director, our Commissioner Anderson as well, and Al Gobey.
Oh, great.
So
what a team.
they're all working together with this whole council from people from all walks of life.
Well, it's huge. Opioid hits everything.
Yeah.
It's in every walk of life.
And it's exactly right. This isn't a partisan issue.
No.
This is not a socioeconomic issue. I mean, it hits everyone.
Yeah.
And so we've made some strides, and we highlighted some of them a couple weeks ago. For the first time of any state, I believe, in the country can say we don't have a waiting line for treatment.
Right.
Which is amazing to say that.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that we're not there yet. I mean, we're not treating everyone who needs to be treated. And this doesn't mean that we're, as I put it, we're not spiking the football in the end zone, because this isn't over. It's far from over. We have so much work to do.
So what do you expect from them, like in January? I'm sure there's a report due.
Yeah.
What's their mission, I guess, because it's so huge.
Well, it is, but when you get people from all different perspectives and you get them into one room, and there are opportunities, whether it's like the all-payer issue, or whether it's VOREC, or whatever it is, you get different perspectives. Jolinda and others are talking like they have some great initiatives they'd like to work on.
Because it really does impact everybody. I don't know if you remember when the methadone clinic, we were deciding in Berlin whether to allow it there or not. I'm never going to say who, but people came to me about their children. And the people that came to me, you would just be so surprised who they were. And they were begging me as a part of the council to say yes to this methadone clinic instead of having their kids going to Burlington. People that just would surprise you to no end who they were.
If you don't think it affects you, you're just not aware.
Yeah.
Because it affects every single one of us in some way.
It's amazing.
You know someone.
That's right.
Yeah.
In your family, your friends, or someone breaking into your home.
Right, right. So my next favorite question here is the EB5, which you're really lots of issues. But what I found interesting was it yesterday that Tom Epslin came forward and wanted to do a special prosecutor for the EB5 scandal, and sounded like you were sort of thinking about it.
Well, I haven't read the article yet, but I have a great amount of respect for Tom Epslin.
It was a very well written article.
And it's not something that has been lost on me, that we need to restore faith in this. I still believe the EB5 program has been beneficial for Vermont.
Well, it's up in Sugarbush, and Wynn's made
Stowe, Sugarbush.
Because they're small. Wynn said it was because it was small and he could manage it.
Well, that, and you could argue that I think the Northeast Kingdom is still better off than it was 15 years ago.
Probably.
Yeah, I think
as a result of the investment. In fact, it was interesting. You should bring that up, because I had a call today from Tony Pomelo.
Oh, Tony.
And today is Tony's 100th birthday.
Oh, bless him.
Today.
Oh.
And he said that after the fact. He just called because he wanted to give me his thoughts on the EB5.
Oh.
And because he'd heard the comments I made yesterday. And so he, as you know, he was very resistant in Newport to.
Well, he backed out of the deal, and he said he was worried about the financial.
Yeah.
That would have been a clue.
That's
I think that was the first warning to everyone when that happened. Yeah.
That's right. I told him, I said, we're going to listen to you a little bit more next time. Not that we don't pay any attention, but you, I said, and Dick Mazza, actually. Dick Mazza has been one who has said, this just doesn't feel right to me. When something's too good to be true.
Yeah, it probably isn't.
Probably isn't.
Yeah.
So, but he still believes, Tony, at 100 years old, and sharp as a tack, by the way, he still believes that this is an important tool for Vermont, and that we should keep it in some way. And so we're having a little bit of a battle with the feds on this. As a matter of fact, because they want us to discontinue the program, like right now.
Oh, for
Our center,
everybody?
our EB5 center, they
I
want to
hope
stop.
not.
And we still have companies that are relying on us.
Right.
And so, with Mike Pichek has done a great job at DFR, Department of Financial Regulation, another person you should have on.
Yep.
And he actually helped in trying to right-size this and highlight some of the issues.
Because I'd hate to see the programs that are working.
Right. So that's what we're
have to go
saying.
away.
You know, I don't disagree. I don't believe that we should the state government should be in charge of this and be responsible for this center.
Right.
But I do believe we have a responsibility to for the folks that are still in this program that are counting on us, like Mount Snow and others, to follow through, because it's still working for us.
Yeah.
So we're just saying, let us transition out of this over the next couple of years, and then we'll put something else in
Maybe
place.
the trick is the size of it, that it can only be a manageable size.
Well, or just somebody managing
Yeah,
it that has the expertise.
Right.
Right now, in its infancy, there was just a handful of these regional centers. Now there's over 700 throughout the country. So,
Wow.
so it's a different model. It's different, and Congress may change it as well. I don't know, but I think we still need to work on
I
it.
think
And Vermont's was the only one that was actually run by state government. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think
it's kind of a.
It was because I think it was one of the early ones. I think
Yeah.
that was part of the problem in our rural nature. And I'm not sure anybody understood it in the beginning. So that was part of its downfall as well. It
Well,
got
when you
too
have
big.
the what's supposed to be the regulatory agency and the promotion agency being in the same house, it's not.
It's kind of a
Yeah.
That's right. They should be separate and segregated.
should have Ernie Parma,
Tony.
Have Tony on. He'll fix this. Let you go ahead.
So there's a number of initiatives that your administration's undertaken to improve government operations and services, and I'll just cover a couple of them. Vermont State Police improving fair and impartial policing practices. They've been working on that for a few months now. The $50 million over 2 years for clean water infrastructure, as well as the protecting ridgelines from wind development. So there's several issues there. If you just want to give us a quick update on where some of those things are at.
Well, public safety, obviously, I think one of the primary missions of any government is public safety, and I think we have a lot to be proud of in a lot of ways. I think they've come a long ways in developing that fair and impartial treatment. Commissioner Anderson, another person you probably should have on.
Yes,
The list is getting longer.
I know.
Exactly.
Former U.S. attorney and has roots here in Vermont, and he has been a breath of fresh air. And we've done so many things within public safety as well, not just with state police, but the permitting associated with construction projects. There was a bottleneck there.
Yep.
And I said, some of my developer friends were saying, there's an issue here. It takes us, we get through Act 250 and all the everything else, and then we have to bring all our plans, all our stamped drawings and so forth. We have to bring them with a wheelbarrow full of money to public safety so they can stamp them and go through them. And so they've, with Commissioner Anderson's oversight, any project under $200,000 is done in a much different way, so that we can streamline that and get them through. So that's an effective, some of that lean manufacturing type of initiative. As well, ridgeline development, I think my views have been clear on that, that I don't, it goes back to we have our Canadian friends who we have some good relationships with. They have an overabundance of renewable energy right in Canada, and we should be taking advantage of them. In fact, there's the TDI initiative through Lake Champlain. It's all fully permitted, and if Massachusetts decides to go with this with TDI, this could have an incredible financial benefit to Vermont and help with the water cleanup.
I was going to say, and help with some of the, especially in the part of the lake that it would be.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what we need. We need, some resources in the future. We have the $50 million that Treasurer Pierce had recommended. We're following through with that.
Did I read an article where the secretary, and I forget her
Julie
name.
Moore.
That she...
Another one you should have on.
Yes, I know, and I met her somewhere. She's very, very smart.
Oh, she was head of the Lake Shore. You probably knew her during the Douglas era.
Oh, maybe.
Because she was head of the Clean Clear.
But wasn't she quoted as saying she might want to cut back because they don't have a plan?
That just isn't. It's just not accurate.
I was thinking,
by the way, it's just
that's
not.
bad.
It's completely inaccurate. Here's the issue. We have a responsibility to make sure that we're putting projects forward. We're just not throwing money at it. We have projects that make sense. They're shovel ready, and we can implement them.
Right.
We have that responsibility. We just passed this in June.
Right.
Okay? This is the first of the fiscal year. So over the next 2 years, starting in July, like 3 months ago, the clock starts ticking. $50 million, let's say, and more beyond, because this is going to be a long-term initiative. But think about it in terms of your home or your car or whatever it is. You have to do some upgrades over the next couple of years or next 20 years. Doesn't mean you have to do it all in the first 3 or 4 months.
Right.
You want to make sure these projects aren't ready to go yet.
Right.
They weren't ready to go when we started this. And they aren't ready to go yet.
Right. Was that money I don't want to say a surprise, but I'm sure we'll take whatever, especially for the lake cleanup, because that is so critical to our economy. It just upsets me where it is right now.
Yeah.
I thought we were trying to fix this years ago, and somehow we just never got there.
But for those who say that that we weren't effective then, who knows what the lakes would look like if we hadn't done what we did.
Yeah, right.
So. I'm not sure. I'm not ready to say that the money was not effective, because I think it was, but we need to do more. We know that, and we're doing that. With agriculture is doing their best. Their management practices are changing. They're injecting manure in. They're changing the way to do buffer zones, so forth. Crop rotations, all kinds of different new technologies changing.
And Ensign says the farmers want to do the right thing.
Right.
It's not like they're resisting this.
This didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to get fixed overnight. So we want to make sure that we have these projects that are actually going to be effective, put into place. So I think that, I don't know if it was a misquote, I don't know what it was, but we have not decelerated the projects whatsoever.
It should get out there, because people were like, what do you mean?
No, we're moving forward as fast as we possibly can.
Excellent.
And when we have a project that's ready to go, we'll implement it.
Because we do know what's wrong with what needs to be done. I always thought Canada and New York had something to do with this, but I've been told over and over we have found the problem, and it is us. And so they have a little bit of it.
Yeah,
it's not
just us though.
Yeah,
it's some of it is New York. I mean, they have agriculture as well, but we have agreements with them.
Yeah.
And technology's changing, and we're continuing to look at ways that we can do the right thing, clean up our waterways, and do so in an effective manner. And I believe that we're
such a gorgeous lake.
It is.
Yeah. Well, and it's essential to our economy, but there are some new technologies, I think, that will make options available to us that weren't there even just a few years ago.
Well, and we're going to try some of those in Lake Carmi as we speak.
I read that. Yeah.
Trying to inject oxygen into the water.
Right.
That's part of the problem. The phosphorus squeezes out the oxygen, and then plants bloom and so forth. And so, it's a Band-Aid in some respects, and we have to continue to make sure that we don't allow the phosphorus to go into the lake. That's the key. But we have, again. The agriculture is a big industry, part of our tradition and culture. $3 billion industry.
Right. And we love our farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have this,
farm to plate.
That's like
that
when
concept.
people. Yeah. Well, that's what people think of when they think of Vermont, right? Think of cows and old red barns and covered bridges.
Right.
So.
Not anymore. A lot more. Why don't you go ahead? We got to do the.
Well, so we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on the budget. We got a few minutes left, so we'll try to not race through it, but be expedient. Budget this year was a balanced budget, no new taxes or fees, and you did it without cutting programs and services, particularly for the most vulnerable Vermonters. So that was, I think,
First time ever.
first time in quite a long time, at the very least. And it was kind of, in some ways, I think that success was overshadowed by the disagreement over the education proposal and the teachers' health care. Where is that today, and where do you anticipate being in 2019 when those contracts reopen?
Yeah, it got a little messy there at the end, but we got through it, and we have again, for the first time ever, a budget that didn't raise tax and fees. I think that's a huge message that is
Only
resonating.
one negative vote in the House. That's a record, I'm sure.
Resonating throughout Vermont, and I think that it is bringing some hope to our businesses, to our citizens, that we can live within our means and that we can grow our way out of this. But we have to make the right investments in the right areas, and that's why it was critical that we made those in those TIF districts, which are so essential.
Right.
The
Yeah.
tax
Those were
incremental
6 more
financing.
TIF districts, right?
Six more. So that we can grow those down, and more tax credits for downtown development, maker spaces, all kinds of co-working spaces. There's all kinds of things that we can do, and then we were able to put in the budget. So we did put a commission together as a result of the agreement that we made. It wasn't everything that I wanted by any stretch. The $75 million that was going to be saved, interestingly enough, was because of the Affordable Care Act, the Cadillac tax. The teachers were no longer able to utilize the same health care that they had before. So they put together this VHI commission to take a look at what are the opportunities, where can we go from here. And these plans came in for less money, and about $75 million less. To make them whole, it was determined that about $50 million would be utilized to keep the teachers whole, so they wouldn't have any more out-of-pocket costs. And this is where it gets a little complicated, because it's not just about the 80-20 split. That's what our state employees are paying now, 20%. But it's full range with many different districts. Some are paying nothing. Some are paying 22, 23, 24%.
Governor, where did the 26 million come from? That number was what everybody was focusing on.
So the 70,
but you said 70, and we've heard that before too. Is that over
75
time?
million. Take 49 million out of that to make sure that the teachers are whole.
Oh.
It leaves 26 million.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Hold them
Because
harmless.
we heard 75 million as shown. I said, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
That was a real figure that this commission had figured.
I just hadn't heard it. I heard 26.
So we have this commission that's working on this as we speak. The contract, as a result of the negotiations, the contracts will open back up again, and we'll see. The legislature was confident that they would arrive at the same conclusion without forcing them to take the plan. I don't think that's going to work, but we'll find out with this commission. We're seeing it, a lot of it is pay attention, HRA versus HSA. There is a big difference there as well, out-of-pocket costs and the 80-20 split. So I think they all should be the same. And that would take.
And there are some teachers who pay nothing towards their.
That's right.
It's funded by the schools, by us.
District to district. Right.
Yeah.
And so
they won't be happy.
But we have to.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
We have to do whatever we can to make sure that we take advantage of the situation.
Do you know how many school districts have adopted the 80-20 split on their own at this point? Or?
Well, look at Burlington just last week.
Yeah.
They went to 19. Next year, they'll go to 20. Mm-hmm. So they're getting the message.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, that was quite the
phasing
strike.
it in. Yeah, I know.
got the Representative Wright all. He'll be back next year with no strike.
With the no strike.
Yeah.
No, and I understand that, but I had said early on that as long as the school boards can impose a contract, teachers have the right to strike.
Right.
Public safety officials, I don't think, should be allowed to strike.
No, and state employees don't have a right to strike either.
And it's really uncomfortable and really disruptive for families. I acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it puts
before
everyone in
we
different-
only have a few minutes left, we have to get to the 631.
Oh, yeah.
You use that numerical slogan quite a bit, and I think the numbers are just fascinating.
It is.
And I'd love you to go through that.
It's really a simple
Yeah, it's
process when you think
amazing.
about those 631, three numbers that literally keep me awake at night. And I think about them every day because it represents our challenges. 6 fewer workers in our workforce every single day. When we wake up, there's 6 fewer than we had the day before.
From giving up, from
Demographic
old and-
shift, it's all the above. You know, so we have this demographic shift. We have this age group from 25 to 45 where we have 30,000 less people in that category alone since the last census. So that represents the 6 fewer workers in our workforce every day.
Right.
And that's the workforce. Those are the folks that buy homes, have families, utilize services, buy products, and pay taxes.
right.
And if they're not paying them, then we are. Right? So we need to rebuild that sector. So that's the 6. The 3, again, 3 fewer students in our K through 12 education system every single day than the day before. So we're spending $1.6 billion to educate 86,000 kids, 20,000 less than we did 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
that trend is continuing, and the costs are increasing. So we've got to do something to get a handle on that. And the one is one we talked about, the one baby born to addiction every single day. And that's staggering when you think about it. And that's what we have to, those are our challenges. We have to reverse those trends,
Right.
that path, trajectory, and do things differently. And have the courage to think outside the box and admit that none of us have all the answers. But collectively, if we work together, if we can figure out ways with VOREC or this opioid counselor, whatever it is, work together for common cause and common goals, we can put ourselves on a much better path.
Governor.
Well, on our plate,
Yeah.
together.
Is there anything, before we have to say goodbye, is there anything we didn't talk about that, maybe we didn't talk about marijuana and the carbon tax and all that stuff, but.
Well, the carbon tax isn't going to happen, by the way.
Exactly, that's what I'm glad to read that, Governor.
It's not going to happen. I mean, I
That's a
get
no.
it, but
Yeah.
that's not going to
Good.
work for
Good for
Vermont.
you.
No.
Anything else of importance that we should have
Well,
talked about?
it's all important.
I know, I'm sorry, I apologize.
But
Politically correct or incorrect.
you know, we have a lot of work to do, and again, I'm very proud of the team I put together, and that's what it's all about is teamwork, and trying to. There was no litmus test when I was putting the team together. You know, Republicans and Democrats alike.
Right.
They have talent,
Yeah.
have
And
integrity.
good managers. Congrats on
Right.
that. They're all
management.
good.
That's what we need.
Yeah.
Good managers.
Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah.
And so this Sunday, what are you doing?
Well, I'm going to Thunder Road. Hopefully, I'm going Saturday first.
Oh, yeah, to qualify.
Yeah, if I qualify, I'll get to come back
you get to
on
kiss.
Sunday.
Have you ever kissed the cow?
Twice.
Whoa, good job.
Yeah.
I went to Thunder Road. I can't believe I'm admitting that's the first time this year, this summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for their last
First time
Thursday
ever?
night. First time
Yeah.
ever. I can't believe
Shame
I'm admitting
on
it. I
you.
know.
Well, there's a lot of people in Barrie that have never been.
Never been there?
Never
been.
Oh, my word.
No.
Yeah.
It's an experience.
It
right?
is.
And I sat in the second row back, which was a mistake. I should have sat further back.
So listen, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And in the meantime, keep listening beyond the soundbites.